Welcome to the World Language School, where learning English is easy, fun, and free. Imagine you are at a restaurant with a friend, and he says, "Let's go Dutch." Or your colleague looks at the menu and says, "It's all Greek to me." Wait, what do they mean? Well, you are going to be surprised because from Greece to China, from Mexico to England, there are some expressions that let you travel the world without even leaving your seat. So, pack your bags because in this video, we are taking you on a world tour of English idioms inspired by nationalities. Join us here at the World Torino and let us be your guide as we explore these advanced expressions that can make your English sound more natural and definitely more international. But before we take off, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. We're always making new easy English grammar videos to help you improve your English quickly and easily, and yes, it's for free. So your support means the world to us. Thank you. So are you ready? Fasten your seatbelt and let's start our tour. Our first stop is in Greece. If your friend shows you a page of complex math equations which you don't understand, you can just shrug and say, "It's all Greek to me." You can use this expression to mean that something is completely incomprehensible or unintelligible. Basically, you have no idea what's going on. I tried to read those notes. It's all Greek to me. But why Greek? Well, this expression dates back to medieval England. At the time, Greek was considered a very difficult, even mysterious language for most people. So when scholars came across Greek writing, they literally couldn't make sense of it. William Shakespeare uses this expression in his play The Tragedy of Julius Caesar, when one of the characters in Act 1, Scene 2 says, "For mine own part, it was Greek to me." Saskia uses this line to mean that the speech by Cicero was completely unintelligible for him, so completely incomprehensible. That's how it became to describe anything confusing or impossible to understand. Next time you're staring at a complicated instruction manual, just smile and say, "It's all Greek to me." Next stop, the Netherlands. So we've just seen how Shakespeare uses "it was all Greek to me" to describe something completely impossible to understand. Well, English has another great expression for the very same feeling, and that is double Dutch. Now, if something is double Dutch, it means it is total nonsense, completely unintelligible, as if someone is speaking in a secret code. For example, my teacher tried to explain quantum physics, but honestly, it was double Dutch to me. The origin is similar to that of "it's all Greek to me," when English speakers found Dutch unfamiliar and difficult. So Dutch started appearing in idioms that meant strange, confusing, or complicated. Over time, double Dutch became a fun way to describe anything that sounds like gibberish, for example, instructions, lectures, or even a friend's overly dramatic story. A key difference is that "it's all Greek to me" applies to something that is impossible to understand. This can be due to something which is unfamiliar or complex, or a different language, or even jargon. While double Dutch is often associated with total gibberish. So what is gibberish? It is something which is incomprehensible or something which doesn't make any sense. The speaker's intent doesn't matter, it's just a jumble of sounds to the listener. So, the next time your brain switches off halfway through an explanation, just smile and say, sorry, that's double Dutch to me. And speaking of the Netherlands, there's another idiom we use in English. But before I tell you, picture this. You are at a restaurant and the bill arrives. And suddenly everyone starts looking at the ceiling or at the floor or at the window, everywhere except for the bill. But then someone very bravely will say or can say, let's go Dutch. What do the Dutch have to do with bills? Well, to go Dutch means to split the cost of an activity, especially a meal, equally among the participants. So it looks like this phrase arose around the 17th century when England and the Netherlands were bitter rivals, and the British used the term Dutch in many phrases to imply negative qualities like being stingy. Therefore, going Dutch was initially a British way to suggest the Dutch were too cheap to treat the others. Fortunately, the term's meaning has shifted over time. Today, it is more commonly associated with the Dutch cultural practice of fairness and equality, where everyone pays for their own share, rather than one person being burdened with the entire bill. So, next time you are out with your friends, don't worry, you can smile confidently and say, shall we go Dutch? It is a simple way to say, let's each pay our share. Time to fasten your seatbelt again, even though we are not going very far. The next stop is France. Now imagine this, you drop your phone, your coffee spills everywhere, and you suddenly say the word that is, well, let's say not very classroom friendly. And immediately after that, you can quickly add, pardon my French. This idiom is a playful way to apologize for using rude or strong language, for swearing basically, as if you're pretending the bad word was actually French. For example, pardon my French, but this traffic is unbelievable. So, where does this expression come from? Well, in the 19th century, English speakers sometimes used real French words to sound more sophisticated. But whenever their listeners didn't understand, they would apologize by saying, excuse my French. Later on, people started using this phrase as a joke, not for fancy French vocabulary, but to excuse swear words. So when emotions run a little high and a little slips out, just smile and say, pardon my French. All right, now our next stop is England. We all have that one friend that can talk and talk and talk, and you ask them how their day was, and suddenly it becomes a 45-minute conversation. In British English, we say that that person can talk for England. This idiom means that someone is extremely talkative. They could practically enter a talking competition and probably win the gold medal for their country. For example, don't ask Sarah about the weekend. She can talk for England. The specific origin is not definitely known, but the phrase is understood to have originated in the UK. It is part of a larger group of British idioms that use for England to mean to the maximum, like the phrase, the things I've done for England, which expresses a sense of duty or resignation to a task. So, next time someone keeps chatting non-stop with no signs of slowing down, you know exactly what to say. Wow, wow, wow. You can talk for England. Now, time to fly over to sunny Mexico. Picture this. Two people are arguing. Neither wants to give in, and both are waiting for the other to make the first move. A total deadlock. Nobody wins, nobody loses. Everybody just waits. This situation is called a Mexican standoff. It means a confrontation where no one can win, and any move could make just things worse. Everyone is stuck, and nobody wants to be the first to act. For example, neither team wanted to take the risk of in the final minutes. It was a real Mexican standoff. The term Mexican standoff was originally used in the context of using firearms, and it still commonly implies a situation in which the parties face some sort of threat from one another. Of course, this is typical in movies. Imagine holding a phone, threatening to call the police, being held in check by a blackmailer, or in global confrontations. In everyday English, we use it to describe any situation where people are stuck and cannot make progress. So, the next time a meeting goes nowhere because no one wants to compromise, you can say, well, we've got ourselves a Mexican standoff. Now, we're going to cross the ocean and we're going to go over to China. Imagine your friend says, come on, let's go bungee jumping. And you reply, no way, not for all the tea in China. Now, this idiom means you absolutely refuse to do something, not even for the biggest reward you can imagine, not under any circumstances. Apparently, the phrase originated in Australia, in Australian slang in the 1890s. But why tea? Because China has been one of the largest tea producers in the world for centuries. So for all the tea in China represents something incredibly valuable, enormous, basically the biggest bribe ever. So the next time someone tries to convince you to do something you don't want to do, you can confidently say, nope, not for all the tea in China. Now let's stay in China for another popular idiom. Imagine this. You tell your friend a simple message. They tell someone else. That person tells another person. And by the time it reaches the last person, the message is completely distorted. Now that is what we call Chinese whispers. The idiom describes how information can get mixed up, exaggerated, or totally changed as it passes from one person to another. For example, I only said I was tired, but after some Chinese whispers, people thought I was moving to another country. And the origin? Well, in the 19th century, Europeans found Chinese languages obviously very unfamiliar and difficult to understand. So the phrase was used to describe messages becoming confused or unclear. Today, we simply use it to talk about rumors or messages that get twisted along the way, but not about the actual language. So, the next time a story spreads and ends up completely wrong, you can say, sounds like a classic case of Chinese whispers. Now that brings us to the end of our little world tour. I hope none of this was double Dutch and that explanations weren't all Greek to you. Whether you decide to go Dutch on your next night out, or you hear someone say, "Pardon my French," now you'll know exactly what they mean. If you enjoyed this trip around the world, please give the video a like, subscribe to our channel, and share it with a friend who can talk for England. The secret is simple. Keep practicing, watch our English videos, try new sentences, and use your English every day. As we say in English, practice makes perfect. Thank you for watching and keep practicing English with us here at the World Language School.